The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi everyone, I am Macca 19 and this is the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast coming to you live once again on Port Fan Radio. And look, joining us as co-host once again, we got Fisting Rick. How are you, mate?
Yeah! Fist you alright. Face.
Oh yeah.
Did you say
Violence.
tiz?
That's it.
Did you say tiz? It sounded like you said tiz.
Tiz?
Tiz.
No, I don't think I said tiz.
I've got an apology actually, Macca.
Okay.
I had a massive disservice, or gave a massive disservice to Justin Westhoff on Monday night because I didn't remember much of the last quarter, as you know. So I watched the replay last night, and his last quarter was huge.
It was massive.
And we didn't really talk about it on Monday too much either.
No, probably not. But it was massive.
It was massive, and I think he deserves a lot of kudos for that performance. And I really underrated his game on Monday. So there you go. I'm sorry, Justin. I won't do it again.
On your Westie.
Westie.
And look, back on the podcast for the first time this year, his posts over the last 18 months or so make me want to run through a brick wall. We are talking with the great Janus. How are you, mate?
Hey, boys. How are you?
How come you didn't manipulate his handle, Macca?
Well, look, Fisting Rick and Anus is probably not a great combination, is it?
Set that one up
into that sort of stuff.
That's it.
That's for another radio show.
That's right. That's it. We'll leave that for tomorrow night.
All right.
Porn Fan Radio.
The Port Adelaide pair can discuss that one.
That's it. Well, Janus, how have you seen the season so far? You happy with 2-2?
Obviously better if we were 4-0, but realistically speaking, from where we were at, and from what I've seen and how we've been playing, 2-2 is pretty much par, I reckon, for the draw that we've got. So, yeah, reasonably happy.
What about you, Rick? Happy with 2-2?
Well, I predicted us to be 4-1, so obviously I was a little bit unrealistic. So I will take 2-2. I was very concerned, as you know, when we were 0-2. But yeah, we've turned it around. I don't think we're necessarily firing on all cylinders yet, but we're definitely getting better. So better than 0-4, which I was worried about at one point in time.
Yes. No, we've turned it around, and look, it's going to be another huge game this week.
Massive.
But before we talk about the upcoming showdown, we'll talk about our new sponsor, which is YouBet. They've come on board. I believe it's the rebadged TAB. And look, we've passed the 12 million corporate sponsorship mark for the first time, which is absolutely brilliant news. I think we've tripled our sponsorship over the last couple of seasons, which is fantastic. Seems to be a couple of critics about this, though. What do you guys think?
Well, how come you never told me that YouBet were coming on to sponsor Port Fan Radio? Are you taking all the money?
I am. All 3 cents. Yeah.
All 3 cents. I'm not a big fan of betting in sport, Macca. I think it should be left to the traditional forms. I just think spot betting and everything else, it just sort of opens it up to corruption. And as we've seen in the past, that has happened and will probably continue to happen. It should just been left to the black market, I guess, or dogs and horses. But in this corporate world where we're chasing corporate dollars, the club would find it very difficult to say no.
Yes. What do you think, Janus?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. Like, I don't particularly have a problem with placing a punt every now and then, but at the same time, if they didn't sponsor us, they were going to sponsor someone else. They'd find somewhere else to spend their sponsorship money. So I'm quite happy to accept whatever filthy lucre that they're willing to throw away.
I was just going to say I'm pretty happy that they've come on board. You know, it's a new sponsor. They're going to give us plenty of money. Look, I'm not really a huge gambler or much of a gambler at all. So, and I still find it okay. I'm pretty happy with this. I can understand the concerns because sports betting has become such a huge part of the AFL over the last 2 or 3 seasons that it's almost taken over a little bit. But we've had like Coca-Cola and KFC and 4 and 20 and CUB, and I mean you can come up with negatives about any sort of business, really.
Yeah, well, I guess alcohol's another one for another show. But yes, you can. But I guess it's for the people that got a handle on it, it's fine. But for all of us that have got a handle on it, there's a lot of people that have issues with gambling, and I guess we're just institutionalising gambling for people at a younger age and making it more socially acceptable, which can lead to problems as they get older. But it's a pretty morbid discussion for our light-hearted football preview show.
Take responsibility for your actions, is what I say.
For your own actions?
Yeah.
Sometimes times get tough, and I guess that's the challenge. Where does a club, and not just our club, but any club, have to put social and moral responsibilities before dollar? And the whole talk about the Alistair Clarkson episode and radio or TV or media outlets buying this sort of footage because they make lots of money out of the viralness that goes in that footage. I mean, at the same time, if AA doesn't talk about it and doesn't endorse it, well, then it will fall on deaf ears pretty quickly. And if every media outlet took that sort of stance, well, then that sort of footage is worthless, and they wouldn't be encouraging it. So, that's part of the problem we have in society. It's there, and I guess, and the same with gambling and you bet. But good on them. At least it's helping the club, I guess, temporarily, and like all the footy clubs that live off of pokey revenue as well. So thanks for bringing that up, Macca. I think we should move on.
Let's get into something positive and talk about the Showdown. It's here once again with a bit of extra spice this week with ex-Port Adelaide assistant coach Philip Walsh coaching the Crows against us for the first time. And look, as always, we lead the count to 2017, the win-loss record. And, it wasn't a happy time the last time we met. We lost by 23 points after leading by 17 during the second quarter. I guess first and foremost, just quickly, what's your favourite Showdown?
First one for me.
First one? Yep.
First one, against the odds, unexpected. I thought that was amazing. Still resonates with me.
Yep, that's a good call. Janus?
There's been so many to choose from, but I reckon probably 2000 and now. I'm trying to think. There was one year where we won both of them, and we were just completely and utterly crap for that year. I think it was 2011. I'm not entirely sure, but it was one in that year. Simply because no matter what happened, we could rally behind the fact that we just didn't like the Crows and we'd do anything to just mess up their season. Right? So that resonates with me.
Yeah. I reckon that might have been 2009, or 2010.
2010? Yeah, 2010. Yeah, it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So from the 2013, that's what I mean.
Yep, that's the one. Look, for me, my favourite Showdown is... I always come back to the first Showdown of 2002 for some reason. And, we had a couple of players out. The Crows were in good form, and we started pretty horribly in front of what was I believe it was a record AFL crowd at Footy Park at that time. It was a night game, the Crows home game. There would have been only maybe 2,000 Port fans at the ground. We came from 5 goals down to win with a massive last quarter effort by Chad Corns and Peter Burgoyne. And it was probably Jared Schofield's best game for Port Adelaide, and also Big Barnaby French as well changed the game for Port when he went into the ruck, as Primus was struggling a little bit. But I always come back to that one. That was always a good one.
What about the bounce?
The bounce? Well,
Excuse me,
can't
my
go wrong with
office
that.
phone's calling at the same time. It never rings at 8 o'clock.
Hang up on him. Pull it out the wall.
Hilarious.
Great stuff. Live radio at its absolute best once again. Well, look, let's go on about this game, and we'll talk about the teams. In comes Robbie Gray. Janus, who do you think is going to come out?
It'd have to be Archie, simply because he was the guy who was listed as emergency last week, and is the guy that came in for Robbie when he didn't come up. I can understand why people might think Mitchell might come out because, he didn't, saying we might want to keep that big body midfielder in there, but I'm just thinking Brendan Archie, he's played the sub for 2 weeks already. He needs a full game if he's going to be anything else. So probably best to send him back and then play Gray in his spot.
It's an interesting bench, don't you reckon? There's some names there that I wasn't expecting to be there. I don't think O'Shea is going to be playing. I didn't think he was that impressive against Norwood last week. I could see maybe the need for speed and therefore maybe Armon getting a game, but I can't see Aaron Young going out. So it's a tough
I think
one.
it's pretty clear that there would only be one change, and it's probably going to be Robbie Gray in and Brendan Archie out. And it might be a little bit tough on Brendan, but as Jane has said, I think he deserves a full game just to keep his fitness up. And I don't think there's any doubt that we'll see him again in the next few weeks at AFL level.
I'm just wondering if Matty White and Pollock are carrying injuries, and I know it's a massive game, but would you maybe rest one of those players and play Archie for a full game and maybe bring Amon onto the bench just to get him in, and even though it's the Crows and it's a derby and it's a significant game, I just think why risk running with some guys that maybe could do with a week off if they've got those ankle injuries that's being suspected.
I think they said that Pollock especially has an injury that they're managing, and I don't think it can get any worse than what it is. It's just not getting any better without rest. So if you're going to do that, I would wait until next week against West Coast, who has should we say this, plodding midfield, I guess. It's a very slow midfield, and you don't need to use that running so much, and you can bring in someone like a Brendan Archie for his first full game. But for this week, for what we're coming up against, and I just think if we're going to use the run against the Crows, because if you don't use the run against the Crows, they do have some powerful weapons if you play it on their terms, and we want to play it on our terms, which is
that's it,
to run more feet.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be starting a debutant in this game. I think Amon will definitely get his chance in the next probably 4 or 5 weeks. I would say he might get a go, but yeah, I'd be just bringing back Robbie Gray and going with our best possible side. And that for me has got Kane Mitchell in it, it's got Monfries in it, and probably Young on the bench as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
So you're choosing the Arch out over Mitchell, I take it?
Yeah, I'd still be playing Mitchell, for sure.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I want Mitchell out, but I'm just curious how you're going there. Because I thought Brendan was actually pretty impressive in that last quarter last week. It's really tough on him, but I guess if he is the one that has to go back, I guess I'd really love him to just smash out a couple of massive four-quarter games and really push his name to go back into the side. I guess there's going to be opportunities that come up with injuries again shortly, because it's inevitable with the way we play and the hardness that injuries are going to occur.
Yeah, that's right. Look, as I said, he'll get his go again, and for me, I think a bench of Mitchell, Monfries, Young, and Krakouer is probably the way to go. You look at the Crows side; they've dropped Kyle Hartigan because he is crap, and they brought back Kyle Chaney, Kyle for Kyle. And look, Chaney's had some pretty good form to start the season in his first couple of games. I'm not sure if they'll make any other changes from their ins, and I think maybe Grigg, Cameron, and Crouch will stay as the emergencies. But do you think this might be an area where we might be able to exploit the Crows because they don't have a particularly tall defence?
This is our key to winning, Macca, is our forward line. And I'd like people to tweet us or Facebook us who they reckon should be out or who the bench will be, because the tweets are a bit quiet at the moment. So get active or interactive, people. But look, I reckon this is where we can exploit it. I think we're better in the midfield. But they do have a good midfield.
Yep.
But our defence, I think, is stronger than theirs. But our forwards should be able to dominate. They've got Talia, and who's he going to bloody pinch and hold down for the whole game? Say Schultz.
Well, he always does the job on Westhoff, and he's had really good form against Westhoff over the last couple of seasons.
So what will Port do? They're going to push Westhoff further up the ground outside the inside 50 and just isolate Paddy Ryder and Matty Lobe alternating with Jay Schultz. Who's going to stand those for the Crows?
Well, you would think... I reckon Chaney might go to Schultz, and I think probably Kelly will go to Ryder, and I think that's probably the matchup where we might look to exploit, because Kelly's not the tallest key defender going around, and Paddy Ryder should be able to outmark him pretty easily, I would think.
It's good to see Catherine supports my call for the Arch to get a full game as well.
It's a good tweet, that one.
It is a good tweet. Yes. But yeah, I mean, well, can you see them defensively being able to match up on our tools adequately?
Well, no, this is where they, as I said, this is where we might be able to exploit them. So, look, hopefully Westhoff can get off the leash a bit and run Talia around a bit this time around, because Talia's done a great job on him, especially last year. He kept him to minimal impact, so really hoping Westhoff brings out one of his Showdown medal winning performances this week.
He loves the Showdown.
He does. Janus, what do you reckon, mate?
I reckon that Walsh has decided that he's not going to win against our forward line with just conventional matchups, so why bother trying? And he's just gone for more run and speed out of defence so that he can push up against the midfield and really make it really congested. Because as soon as it gets over the top, obviously Ryder's just going to have a field day against how many games has Kelly played? Not very many, I don't think. 2. Well, there you go. Exactly. So that's what's going to happen. So he's just heard that, no, I'm going to press up, clog up the midfield, and basically defend from the front. So, yeah. I can't see their defenders being able to handle our forwards, but it's getting the ball there that's going to be the problem.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, look, midfield I think is where it's going to be won and lost, because midfield's is probably Adelaide's strong point so far this year, and as expected they've been a lot tougher around the ball, and they're implementing their sort of full oval press, and it is getting them results. They were pretty poor against the Dogs on the weekend, and I guess we'll talk about that a little bit later, but from 2014 to 2015 they've gone from 17th to 5th in tackles, 11th to 2nd in clearances, and 7th to 3rd in contested possession. So they're winning a lot of the hard ball and they're getting it forward pretty quick.
And don't forget the ground ball gets, Macca. It's a fundamental aspect of the game that we have to win the ground ball gets, or I'm going to jump in the water at the end of the jetty and go for a swim.
That's it. Elite standards.
Walk the end of the jetty.
Yeah, ground ball. I'm going to walk there from Kersbrook and jump in if we don't win the ground ball gets. I don't care about just contested ball. It's ground ball. That's the key. Sorry.
You've done well.
Oh.
Was that your Walsh impression?
It was. Is that actually what it sounds like? I don't know.
No.
I just thought
he's a bit more awkward than that.
I thought Sando was a bit of a dullard, and I thought they couldn't replace him with any more of a dullard than Sando, but they did pretty well. But our supports me would keep in the Arch in as well, and And Bevan wants Jenkins to go back and defend on Ryder because he reckons that would be a field day if that's the case.
Possibly, yeah. I'm not sure Jenkins has a whole lot of experience playing key defensive roles, so yeah, it's probably one that we could exploit as
He's
well.
done it once before.
They got Cole
before against St Kilda.
And as Scott S has just pointed out, the Crows got Cheney. He could go and match up on Ryder down at full forward, couldn't he? Their key defender they recruited from Hawthorn.
Yeah, but who's going to take
Cheney.
Schultz then?
They still got Luke Brown. What about Luke Brown?
Oh, he's pretty small. He's a shutdown small defender, so...
All right. Elaine's actually asked us a serious question, which I think is a good segue into a bit of a serious talk about the strategy, and that is, well, the Crows did win the NAB Cup game against us. So how differently is this one going to be played out?
A lot different, I think, because we're not going to allow them to have so much free space and going end to end, which is what they did numerous times in that NAB Cup game. I think we'll be putting in a much stronger midfield effort, which we didn't do in that NAB Cup game. And I think our forward line's going to fire a little bit better.
Yeah, I think we really got surprised by their new zonal structure that they had under Walsh, and I must admit I was very impressed with it, especially in that third quarter when they dominated the centre square as well. But they were allowing us to sort of kick in deep into our forward 50 defensive 50 pocket, but they instantly had that press going, trying to pin us in there. And that's where I thought the Bulldogs went really well last week. They sort of did a diagonal kick in addition to the normal transitional switch, which really either carved their zone up through the middle or on the outside. So as long as we can take away what the Bulldogs did last week, and if we can match our centre square intensity and clearances like we did against Hawthorn, I think it's a no-brainer. That's going to be how we're going to take the Crows apart this Sunday.
Well, look, the Dogs played, and the way they won is how we like to play football as well. You know, they beat Adelaide at their own game. They put pressure on the ball carrier. Adelaide wilted under that pressure. There was quick movement into the forward line, and they used their pace quite significantly, and that's what we're known for. And I think we'll see that again. I think we'll see guys like White and Polek and Gray and Wingard, try and find that space and run the Crows off their feet.
Mm.
Pittard for Showdown medal.
Pittard Nation! Good work.
We're just joining in the popular vote now.
Yeah, I told you. It's just become a bandwagon. It's too late. It's we know.
Not bandwagon. I reckon that Pittard will play the role that Robert Murphy played last week from the Bulldogs. That sort of like that running, hitting it fast, and then he was the guy who did that switching diagonal kick most of the time and found the guy in space. And I think Pittard's the guy who he has that.
He's the man.
I'm trying to think of the right word. He's got that aggressiveness, I guess, what it is.
I reckon
to take the game on.
Pittard's so cool,
balls.
Janus, that he could actually host his own Port fan radio station on a second, I reckon. We'll have to put the call out to the big pit dog to see if he wants to come on and host his own radio show. And Scott wants to know who's Kane going to go to and tag. Has he got the power to go with the Dangerfield? Probably not.
No.
No?
No.
What about
I would play Corns on Brodie Smith. That's who I'd play him.
Brodie Smith.
Brodie Smith. Okay.
The pace wouldn't concern him?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I don't know if you've got the Danger Man segment, Macca, but I think the Brodie Smith call's really a really good one because Brodie Smith and probably Patrick Dangerfield are the two players to really try and take out of the game as much as possible. So Kane, I do like the idea of Kane on Brodie Smith, but as long as he can run with him off the half-back line, that's the key. And I mean, Kane's
think so.
Fantastic tagger and so experienced. I can't see why he couldn't.
Look, Smith's probably in All-Australian form again. He's leading the Crows in inside 50s and also rebound 50s, so he works very hard up and down the field. Dangerfield, he loves playing against Port Adelaide, so that's always going to be a concern. He's scored Brownlow votes in 4 of their last 5 wins over Port Adelaide. And I know us as a fan base, we, especially on Big Footy, we like to have a bit of a laugh at Paddy Clangerfield, but he really is a difficult player to play against, and I don't think we actually have a natural opponent for him. So personally, I would like to see Janus go to Dangerfield first up.
Yeah, I just think we just need to pressure him, because I agree with you. I don't know if we do have a natural opponent for him, and I mean he's just such a dynamic player that it's very hard to have an opponent to go with him. Maybe Crowley, because of his height from Freo, is probably the only natural matchup I can think of. So I just think all the midfielders need to work as a team with Patrick, and that's what we seem to have done in the past. Just if he gets the ball, we've just got to pressure him 100% and just make sure he's not getting too much ball inside 50. But yeah, I think, and Scott Thompson's an interesting one because he's that old workhorse, and you think, does he really matter? But even last year,
well, he does.
He's an extractor, and he gets the ball out to those runners, and he's someone that really needs to be taken account of.
22 clearances in 2 games. He's averaging 34 touches across those 2 games as well. So he's always a dangerous player.
Absolutely.
We've had a couple of tweets. One from Catherine, who's saying the key to reversing the result from the NAB Cup game is Paddy Ryder. Also Gus. He's got a bit of a history in showdowns. And also Bevan says that we need to pressure their midfield and create more turnovers.
Mm. And what about, and Scott's asking about how much time will Wingard spend in the midfield? I think that's a very good question. Will Robbie Gray, coming back from injury, maybe spend a little bit more time up forward in his first game back? Bit of player management and allow Chad to have a bit more time on the ball?
Well, if Gray's going to play with a bit of a jab, which he might do to get up and play, then it's quite possible we'll see him play maybe out of full forward or in a forward pocket, and that does lead for Wingard to spend more time in the midfield. And I like Wingard as a midfielder. I reckon he's a fantastic midfielder. I think he reads the play exceptionally well, and he's super, super damaging with his pace and his skills.
Mm. Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of. I love the Chad as the midfielder. I think, and I hope we don't pigeonhole him for too long up forward, because I think he's at the age now and he's got the creativity that he should really be, spending 50-60% midfield time at least in our side. He's just an amazing player, and Matty Richardson was pointing out his sideways lateral movements just amazing and makes him so hard to tackle, and he's just such a great player for us.
Yeah. Similar style to Gray, isn't he? So you can imagine them both switching back and forth, forward to midfield and midfield to forward.
Mm. Well, I just find. Sorry, Macca, I was just going to say I find it really difficult at the moment. Look, and I'm probably underestimating their side a little bit, but I just think our defensive unit is a stronger defensive unit than the Crows at this point in time. I look at their forward line, and Tex Walker is a great player. I've always liked Tex Walker as a player, and I always thought he was better than Kurt Tippett. But looking at our forward line with Paddy Ryder in there, which goes with what Catherine was saying, I think our forward line looks better. And on form and paper, I think our midfield looks stronger as well. I just think we're the stronger side all over the ground.
I disagree on the midfield. I think Adelaide's midfield's had a massive start to the year, and I think that's where it's going to win either club the game. If we can handle their press, if we can find the pace on the outside and get it into our forward line quickly, I think we'll most likely win the game. If we struggle to get the ball and we struggle to find that pace, as we did in that NAB Cup game, and we find them too difficult, it is going to be pretty hard to win, I think. I think you might be underestimating Adelaide a little bit. But
I just think they've got a working class midfield. If you take Dangerfield out, who's their star player, I think they're working class after that. Whereas we've got a lot of hard work but bling and flair with our midfield. So
I think we've got more diversity in our midfield. But yeah.
I think that's the key, though. I reckon if we don't have. We've got the bling and the flair and the X factor, or whatever you want to call it, but unless we bring that hard work, the same hard work that they've they're going to bring, because you know they're going to be up for it and going to be contested boards, smashing in and whatever. If we don't bring exactly the same intensity, then I can easily see us losing too. You know, we've got to play exactly the same level as we've been playing for the past 2 weeks, right? And not, you know, just expect it to happen, because I was thinking about this today. The difference between a premiership contender and just a finalist is that a premiership contender plays at the same level no matter what opponent is there. You know, they've got a minimum standard that they play at, and if they're playing against a top 4 side or whatever, they can rise to different levels, but they always are smashing in. That's why they thrash opponents, because they're just playing the same style as what they would play against anyone else.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, let's talk about a couple of key players for the Crows as well. I guess the first one to talk about is the big ruckman, Sammy Jacobs, who seems to raise the bar for showdowns. He kicks goals, and he doesn't normally kick goals, and he's regularly picked up obscene amounts of hit-outs and influence over Lobie in the past. Lobie has sort of struggled against him in the past couple of years. So where does Ryder fit in with this? He had a pretty good game against the Crows last year playing as a ruckman. Where do we see him? Do we think that Ryder as that second ruck is going to be more useful for Lobie this week?
You're just setting us up. Of course, what a stupid question that is, Macca. I mean, honestly.
Thanks, Rick.
Of course, he is the monster. Paddy Ryder is just hitting form. I reckon we have got the new Cox knick-knack combination, to be honest. That was touted as the best ruck combination in the league. And I think that Paddy Ryder is the best second ruckman in the AFL by a country mile. It's a massive luxury that we've got him, and we should be bowing to the gods that he wanted to come to Port Adelaide. And I mean, if Jacobs is getting on top of Matt Lobie, I mean, well, then we've got a complete polar opposite in Paddy Ryder with so much more vertical leap and ability to sort of glide through the air and be a different style ruckman to negate him. And who's going to go with him? Josh Jenkins. I mean, it's just not. No offence to Josh, he's a serviceable player, but he's just not going to be able to run with him.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mac, I didn't mean to be so harsh.
It's okay, Rick. It's okay.
We all know that everyone listens to you more than me anyway.
True. This is very true. Don't forget that. And look, well, they've got a couple of very, very dangerous forwards as well. Tex Walker, he's had a good start to the season. He's kicked 12 goals for the year so far. He looks super fit. He's running all over the park. He seems to be over any sort of queries over his knee. And look, he's been a hard matchup in the past as well. Janus has done a really good job on him a couple of years ago. Carlisle hasn't looked too bad on him on occasion as well. And then, of course, there's Eddie Betts, who last year was the absolute X factor and the match winner for them in that second game. He kicked 8 goals in the 2 showdowns last year. You would think on paper Krakouer looks like the absolute perfect matchup for him.
Mm-hmm.
Monty, I was waiting for you, Janus, to hop in there.
Sorry.
But I think it's a Monty. And no offence to Impey, I've got a bit more confidence with Crack going up against Eddie than Impey. So and I thought Krakouer played well at the moments when he was on Rioli last week. So
yeah, he did.
Yeah, to me it seems like a natural matchup, and that's why it's a great luxury having him in the side. And it's been interesting after our podcast. I saw a lot of topical debate on Big Footy and also on Facebook about the rookie rule, trying to find out whether he could be upgraded or not.
Yep.
Sorry, Frampton, your injury is not responding to treatment. You're going to have to sit out the whole entire season. That's basically what it is. Nah, the good thing about playing Krakouer on Betts is it holds Betts accountable the other way as well, because Krakouer's going to run off him. He'll intercept and then push him forward. And I don't know how good Betts is defensively going the other way. I mean, I'm sure he's a great person to lock it in the ball into the forward line, but in terms of going out of defence, I don't know particularly if he's that fantastic at doing that, but it's definitely going to be a intriguing matchup, and he's definitely one of the most dangerous forwards in the competition. Small forwards. He just seems to bob up and kick a goal when out of nothing. So it's got to. If we shut him down, it's going to be a long way to winning the game.
Crazy Big Al on Twitter agrees. He says that Crack is the man for Eddie, no question.
I definitely think their key to winning is if they've got to just dominate our midfield. That's their only chance. And going back to the ruck conversation we just had, I just can't see them dominating the midfield like they've taken advantage over recent years with Lobie being the solo ruck. So I've got to admit I'm probably disrespecting them quite a fair bit, but I'm entitled to do that because it is the Crows.
That's it. Well, just don't forget we said this same thing in the second showdown last year. How are they going to beat Port Adelaide? I can't possibly conceive how it's going to be possible, but they still found a way. So you just can't ever count them off. And I guess the question that I've got is, will Philip Walsh's IP on Port prove to be an issue?
No.
No, well, it hasn't hurt us previously. And this is probably a conversation for another night, but I'll just mention it very quickly. I think the loss of IP that might hurt us the most out of anyone is if Matthew Nicks goes, because he is an absolute gun at the moment. I reckon he is coaching fantastically with that defensive unit. So he's probably, outside of Kenny and Burjo, he's probably the most important IP person we've got there at this point in time. So I don't think so.
Okay.
The reason why I say no is because Walsh left. Didn't Walsh leave before Ryder was even on the radar and went to the Crows? Because trade period was after he left, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So the IP that he's got, in my opinion, is for Port Adelaide without that forward ruck combo, that extra tall thing. So he knows how we play that way, but with Ryder in there, it changes our dynamic in terms of team structure. Yep. So I just think that Ken would have developed different strategies using Ryder in that that Walsh wouldn't know of. He could guess, and I guess when he's been at closed training sessions, squirreled away in the Crows coach's box or whatever, looking at our training, he'd get some sort of idea, but he won't know exactly what we've got planned or how we're going to use those guys.
Hey, I've heard a rumour, correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently the Crows are doing a march from Parliament Steps at 3:15. Could this be a whole in excess two worlds collided? What the hell? Could we have a English Premier League massive brawl?
Let's hope not.
Well,
that would be awful.
I have just been sent a picture by someone who will remain anonymous, Crazy Big Al, with the march. Meet at Parliament Steps, 3:15, presented by the Pride.
North Terrace hooligans.
This is very scary. They might walk down King William Street. What do people think about that? Maybe they're going to hold out the scarves and sing Kumbaya.
Could be. You never know.
Hey, I've got a question for you guys, though.
Yes.
I read an article today which I thought was very good. Westhoff is the new #1 swingman in the competition. Firstly, do you guys agree with that? And who is he taking the reins over? Who was the previous best swingman in the competition?
Well, I would have thought the previous best swingman would have been Justin Westhoff, so he's taking the reins over from himself.
Really?
I don't know, maybe Jake Carlisle, maybe the media thought that he was doing a better job than Westhoff, but I don't know, Westhoff still doesn't get the kudos that he deserves outside of, probably Port Adelaide and our own supporters.
Mm.
Who do you think would have been a better swingman, Rick?
Before Justin?
Yeah.
Maybe Adam Goods?
When was the last time Adam Goods played in defence?
Well, does a swingman have to play in defence? Could they be a
That's
swingman?
probably the definition of a swingman.
Is it? Could he be swinging from forward to midfield? That's swinging position, isn't it?
It's more of a half swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine. Let's go. I'll scrub that one off the list then. Fine. Stuff you. I would have
What do you
thought.
think, Janus?
I thought maybe Adam Goods.
Well, if you're going by that definition, then you couldn't have mentioned someone like Jared Ruffhead. I mean, he could play forward, back, and in the midfield, but he hasn't played back for quite a while. He didn't play back on the weekend when he probably. I mean, I saw that Hawthorn supporters were probably calling for him to go back instead of McAvoy. So, especially in that first bit. But so, I probably agree with you. I think Westhoff, in terms of his worth to the team and the fact that he has the running capability to go back and forth. I mean, that's the difference. Like other guys in the competition, the coach has to basically say to them, okay, we're going to take you from forward and then put you back. And it's like a positional change, whereas Westhoff just goes where he likes, pretty much. You know, he's forward and then he's back and then he's in the midfield here, and that's the reason why it's so hard to match up on.
I've probably been a bit unfair on Harry Taylor, who's probably a better swingman than Justin, but he would be probably the only one, in my opinion.
I've got to say that everyone that's tweeting tonight and making some fantastic comments. I'm chuckling away at a few of them. I like Bevan where he said gold Zimmer frames to lead the march for the Crows. I think that's pretty good. But and Scott, we sort of spoke about the press. I think the key for us beating the press is fast ball movement, winning the midfield, winning the centre clearances, and being courageous with our switches, doing forward diagonal switch passing as well as the more traditional back and around. And I think we didn't really reveal our hand in the pre-season game. We didn't really switch much at all. I don't think we wanted to show the Crows anything. And I think you'll see a different team play this week against the Crows. Hey, before we forget, Macca, should we do our Who Am I call out at some point in time as well?
Yes, do it now.
Yes.
Next question.
So are you going to take a caller?
Oh, yeah, if they want.
All right.
If they want to ring in.
Macca's going to try and
We'll see if I can stuff it up again this week.
If you want to call in, if you can type it in if you want, but if you want to call, and you got to wait for the question before sending in an answer. So my clue for this week is Richo likes following me.
That's the clue?
That is the clue.
Okay.
So we had
born in 66.
Yes. Between 20 and 1,000. Yeah. 20
and 1,000 goals.
No, I'll refine it to 100 goals. 20 and 100 goals, and Richo keeps following me. Call in.
Call in.
Make Macca,
That's a tough one.
Make Macca answer the phone.
That's going to be a thinker, that one, Rick.
I'm very deceptive, aren't I?
I'm trying to think, but I can't at the moment.
Can't you?
That's a tough one.
Yes, you're all confused about Westhoff swinging. Oh, while we're waiting for caller about
Here we go.
this.
Here we go.
Oh.
We've got our caller.
Cool.
Rising Power. Oh, we've got a couple. Bad luck, Dylan. Sorry, mate. Rising Power was first.
Have we got someone on?
Yeah, we're getting Rising Power on now.
All right. We need to work on this a little bit.
You there, mate?
Hey!
Good feedback.
You there, mate?
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Shout it out quick before we jump here for the feedback.
No idea what the last clue means, but Rowan Smith.
Rowan Smith.
Yeah,
Yes.
Smith.
The Tufty. No, it isn't Rowan Smith.
Go.
But Thank you, mate. We'll try it again on Monday night. And thanks for calling in.
Cheers, mate.
Bad luck, buddy.
It isn't Rowan Smith. Are you writing all these names down, Macca? Because I haven't, and I keep forgetting. So we've had Timmy G,
That's all right.
Roger
But
Delaney.
Timmy G, Roger Delaney, and Rowan Smith.
Awesome. And no one is the wiser.
That's it.
All right, good work.
All
So
right.
where are we up to?
Where are we up to? Let's give a bit of a prediction. Boys, who's going to win?
Janus?
Let me think. I reckon Port's going to win. obviously. By how much? Depends on what sort of team comes out. If we play the way we've been playing the first 2 weeks, I reckon we could either just win, but if we play the same way, that with the same intensity at the ball carrier, pressure them, start making them basically hear footsteps every time they've got the ball, and that puts pressure on them, I reckon we could win by quite a healthy margin. I reckon around about, let's go 37 points.
Nice work.
It's a nice margin. I like that. Rick, what about yourself, mate?
Please, Tippo, people tweet in your tips, because I need all the help I can get trying to catch up Macca. I'm going to go Port Adelaide, and I've picked Port Adelaide. I'm very confident, and doesn't really matter about margin because I just think I'm very confident. And who are you picking, Macca?
Look, it's going to be a tough game, I think. We know the Crows are going to go in hard, and I think the difference between this one and the NAB Cup game is that we're going to equal them in that. We're going to go in just as hard, if not harder. And I think that's going to be the difference between the two teams. We're going to win that midfield battle. We've got a much more diverse midfield. And therefore, I'm going to pick Port Adelaide by 41 points. And I'm going to tip Jay Schultz to kick 6 goals.
Schultz. And this is a new vision tip as well, Macca. This is what you're picking in the new vision tips.
I don't reveal my hand in the real stuff, mate.
Right. I'm slowly catching you now.
Yeah, slowly is the operative word there, mate.
Right. Al keeps sending me messages on Facebook. He keeps going, I know who it is. Al, I'm not going to say who you guessed, but you're wrong, all right? It's not that person, so bad luck. But now you can't play. You're out. You're out, Al. You can't even win the $100 voucher. All over for you, which is thanks to New Vision. And let's not forget the Port Club with stumping up the vouchers for people that have, thanks everyone for supporting the shows that have been going on. So, and there's more vouchers up for grab as well. Oh, I'm not even going to say what you just called me, Al, but that's not very nice at all. I'm getting abused, Macca.
That's all right. That's all right. We'll move on, Rick.
Let's move on.
Cheer the black and the white. Honour the magpies day and by night. Live that long.
And of course, everyone is listening to the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast live on Port Fan Radio with myself, Macca 19, and Fisting Rick, and also Janus.
And it was a good suggestion by Simba today.
It was. Well done, Simba. And look, let's talk about the SANFL because Port Adelaide play Woodville West Torrens at Alberton Oval this Saturday at 2:10pm. It's going to be on Live FM for those that can't make it. We've got a win-loss record, a positive one of 36-33, with Port also winning the last 2 matches between the clubs as well. I guess the question is, can we bounce back from a disappointing game against the Redlegs?
Yep, easily.
Of course we can. We've got a better side this week, don't we?
We do.
And is Paul Stewart named? Is he still in?
Paul Stewart is named, yes.
So I think as long as Tommy Logan doesn't take him out in like the first 2 minutes again, I reckon that's definitely going to help.
That's it. Rick, we got a problem, mate.
What's that?
Scott S on Twitter has said, Macca picking Port with ease. Well, we are stuffed.
Mathematics.
Yes, it's
Mathematics, that's it.
I guess that is always a worry. But you sure you don't want to revise your tip, Macca?
Look, I'll go Port by 40 instead of 41.
Nice work.
There we go.
I mean, I'm actually more concerned about Scott S tweeting in that 10 users trying to steal my number one man or of Jasper Pittard. But a few people are trying to lay claim to that title, so we're just going to have to put up with those false rumours. They can all be jealous at the play sponsor night when I'm sitting next to Jasper taking photos and posting them on Facebook.
Well, look, I think it's good that in terms of Woodville West Torrens, they're missing their gun key forward in Vunke. They still have Ainger up there. They got McGregor up there. We'll be playing against Petrenko for the first time at SANFL level, and Krakouer, who was, of course, at Port Adelaide last year.
You'd think we'd account for Woodville West Torrens quite easily. I'm on Johann Wagner watch this weekend. I want to see his performance.
Fingers crossed for a big one.
He's had 2 average games, and he is a rookie, so he with a bit of SANFL experience. So I'd be hoping he can bounce back and put in a good performance this week.
That's it. Yeah, look, he's probably my player that I'm really hoping comes on this week, and hopefully he can have a big game and get his season back on track. I guess the other one that I'm really wanting to see is probably Johnny Butcher again, which is probably a bit of an obvious one, but look, hopefully he can exploit their defence a bit. He'll probably be playing on either Luke Thompson or Krakouer, so look, hopefully he can take a couple of big grabs and slot through 3 or 4 goals. That'd be nice.
I reckon he'll do all right. I guess I want to see how Jakey Need goes now, because he's been back for a couple of weeks. I don't want him falling into the abyss of SANFL. I want to see him continue to put in strong performances week in, week out, and really force his name back into selection mix.
Yeah, well, obviously he missed out last week because he was the emergency, but he's back in the SANFL side this week. So
yeah, and do you guys agree with me? O'Shea didn't look that great last week, did he?
I thought it was a bit disappointing, but I guess they want a bit of defensive cover on the emergency bench. So him and Amon are listed as outs, but you would think they would make a decision on that, and maybe one or maybe both might play.
Well,
what does O'Shea need to do?
I don't know. I think he's just one of those players that struggles at the lower level. Like he seems to raise his ability and his game and his confidence the further he goes. So, I think he's got a bit of the pedigrees in that regard, whereas where he always seemed to struggle at SANFL level. But I guess unlike pedigrees, that O'Shea's played some absolutely ripping AFL footy. So I don't know. I guess he'll get his chance at some point. It's hard to see who you would drop from our defensive group at the moment, though.
No, you can't.
Sorry, you go, Rick.
No, you're right. I was just going to say you can't. They're in too good a form. They're our form unit out of the offense, defense, and midfield at this point in time. So they're just going to have to be patient and put in consistent performances.
That's it.
I kind of wonder if that actually is part of the reason why he's playing the way he is. Like, in terms of, if I was going out there and I knew that there's no way I'm going to be able to displace guys like Pittard and Broadbent out of the side, and Krakouer, it kind of makes you, I don't know, maybe get discouraged or something like that. So, but then again, you think to yourself, well, this is your job and you're a professional. You should be going as hard as you can and saying, well, yeah, I can displace these people from the side and have that.
I mean, he had a pretty slow start to last year as well.
Well, that's it too.
I think going with
he might just be a slow starter, but
I think going with the Maggies, with the power players combined, I think what I seem to get the picture of, and I could be completely wrong, but they seem to have a complete team mentality. So the guys that are in the second tier trying to get into the first tier seem to get what they need to do to get there and are respectful of the players that are there. There doesn't seem to be that disunity that someone thinks they're good enough and should be in there in above somebody else. And so the team balance and ethos seems to be pretty good. And I mean, I don't know how long that can last for before you get disgruntled players not having enough opportunity. But we seem to have that balance at this point in time.
Yeah. Mason Shaw's another that I really want to see perform this week. He had a bit of a dirty day last week in the wet. Probably wasn't his sort of game, and he was benched for pretty much the entire second half. So they're probably taking a bit of a slow approach with him last week. So hopefully he can play a full game and kick a few goals as well.
I'm looking forward to seeing him as a ruck rover.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shambles, the way that the side's named at the moment.
Yeah.
But, look, Nicholas Tew on Twitter has said that Sammy Gray to prove that he loves the wet weather again. It should be raining. Best on ground. That's his call. I do like that call.
Yeah.
Sammy Gray was fantastic last week, and
He
he's
was.
another one that's probably, if he wasn't on the rookie list, he might be pushing for selection as well.
He was best on ground last week, wasn't he? He was a great
He
player.
was, absolutely.
Yeah. Good poor player.
So tips in this one, boys?
Maggie's, of course.
Bye.
Janus?
Oh, yeah, Maggie's. I was waiting for him to say by how much. Yeah, Magpies.
I'm not doing margins at this point in time.
Okay.
Seeing we're near the end of the show, Macca, I've got a quick question for the pair of you guys to answer. No, not long-winded, but I've been reflecting on the genius of a couple of people at our club running it at the moment. You got a choice between KT or Koshi. Who are you going to choose?
Is John James an acceptable answer?
No, you got to choose one of the others.
Oh, look, I would go probably Koshi, just for his ability to get some big corporates on board.
Right. So KT's replaced.
Which is very harsh on KT because I love KT, but I don't know. I think in our situation, I would pick Koshi ever so slightly ahead.
Sure. Janus?
So I'd pick KT. And the reason behind that is because unless you get the on-field stuff right, and KT's a football piece, and I love Koshi and I love what he's done in terms of the corporates and stuff, but unless you can get the football department right and get the people in place to actually, produce in the field, then it doesn't matter how great at networking you are, you're not going to have a product to sell. A good one. So that's the reason why I'd pick KT. But that being said, you don't know who would replace him either. So that's the thing. Like Koshi is pretty irreplaceable in terms of his corporate reach and his national audience and things like that. So I can understand why Macca would say picking Koshi, but yeah, that's the reason why I would pick KT.
I love that answer, and Rick, I would like to change my response, please, to KT.
I'd actually argue Koshi. I think that with his persona and media profile, he's a lot harder to replace than KT. Even not disrespecting KT, what he's done. I think he's been a fantastic CEO, but there's a lot of CEOs out in the talent pools to choose from than there is celebrities. But I'd like to hear people's opinion on
the ultimate answer.
Stephen Trick.
Yeah. Yes, bring back Triggy. I want to see Triggy run the Port Adelaide Footy Club.
Oh,
that would be
you troll.
Horrendous. That
troll
would be horrendous.
Troll Macca.
No, look, I think the good thing about choosing Koshi is that he would be someone that would pick KT as the CEO. So you get the best of both worlds.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not many Koshis out there. How many high-profile media people are there that would be able to be president of the Port Adelaide Football Club?
But then there's not many CEOs as casual as our Casual Keith either. So.
No, that is true. But I'm sure...
Who offers hot chips to fellow supporters, such as Nicholas Till and Harold and Mr. Speaker.
Does he really? I missed that bit.
Didn't you listen? Did you?
I did.
He walked up to our three fellow podcasters and offered them a hot chip in the pouring rain last week at Adelaide Oval, and they accepted and they said it was a fantastic moment. So there's not many CEOs that you can pick doing that. I can't see Stephen Trigg offering anyone a hot chip.
And did they say why they were taking the pick, the chip KT? We're doing
maybe a Balfour's pie, but that would be about it.
We're doing the Maggie show on Wednesday night, KT. How about coming on and having a chat? Maybe they can hit him up next time. But
look, quickly before we go,
yes,
let's talk about very quickly. What other game are you keen on this week?
Friday night will be interesting, if only for the fact of you got Mick Malthouse's, the whole record thing and whatever, and see how Mark Stevens is gonna, bait him. Pretty much that's what that is for. But in terms of actually football things, football matches, you know what? Sydney versus Bulldogs. Only because I just want to see what the young Bulldogs, and they're trying to do that same run and gun style that we've perfected or trying to perfect. And I just want to see them, how they come up against Sydney, because they're going to, I think, find out how hard it is to play that particular style. But who knows, they might be able to do something special.
Yep, I like that. What about you, Rick?
That was an awesome, quick response there, Janus.
Sorry.
I'm interested in North versus Hawks, because I reckon North might be able to knock off Hawthorn. They seem to match up well.
That'll be a ripper.
And Hawthorn are going to be very, very exposed down back with their injuries. And I am.
Are you kidding? Ryan Schoenmakers is back, mate.
Oh no, they're
superstar.
Spuddledy. I'm also interested in watching Hogan versus Fremantle. That's the other one. But they're my picks.
Yep. I like that. Look, I'm going to go for the game of the round, which is obviously the Q Clash. Both teams are 0-4, so it's going to be an absolute ripper. Look, I think both teams are going to probably defy the team's ladder positions, and I think it might be a pretty good game, and I think it would be an absolute disaster if Gold Coast goes 0-5 to start the year, and a lot of questions will be asked. And look, I think it'll be pretty funny if they both draw and still end up winless at the end of this round.
You're a sadist.
I am.
You are. And once again, can I just say thanks to the Port Club for coughing up some vouchers to give out to you guys for listening. And I want to say thanks for the interaction tonight. It's been awesome. I've enjoyed it, and and people listening in. It's been great. So thank you very much to everyone. It's more fun when you guys are interacting and listening in. And don't forget, we've got all the new shows now. We've got a full panel, and I'm still looking for more if people want to have got an idea for the show. But we've got the Port Adelaide pair tomorrow night. We've got the AFL review show Sunday. We've got Al and Nick and Phil on Tuesday doing the 18-70 hour, and the feedback from that was fantastic. And Matt, Nick and Harold, how good were they on Wednesday? They just, first show, and they were like seasoned pros. Macca, what did you think?
I thought it was fantastic. Both the new shows this week were absolutely awesome, I thought the 1870 hour was fantastic, and lots of great reminiscing information there. And yeah, look, the Maggie show yesterday was fantastic.
Yeah.
And as you said, they sound like they've done this before, which of course Harold has numerous times.
It's a bit disturbing that it's taken us 2 years and we're not nearly half as good as what these guys are putting up. So we've got to take a look at ourselves, Macca. Something's not going right there. We'll be out of a job soon.
Well, look, I'm pretty confident about myself, but Rick, I think you should be looking for a new job, mate.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we need to start putting out for a replacement, Macca. That's all right.
That's it.
Who wants to replace me? Done. Thank you.
Everyone. Really good stuff.
Too easy.
All right, boys.
Pleasure.
Janus, thanks for coming on, buddy.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Anus, fantastic effort, mate. Appreciate your time.
Anus and Fisting Rick. The comedy hour.
Yes, that could be a new show. We could do comedy, Anus. I've got Dylan probably cracking up there because he's already made comment that he was pissing himself laughing. I think it was Dylan. Someone was anyway on Facebook. But we better not get too crass.
That's it. All right, boys. Until next week.
Have a good one.
Guard the bear!
Yeah.
Gray was brave, running hard, Moore getting forward. One last chance, Boat brilliant, winds, Monfrey's centering ball, Cassisi, Willard! You know who again?
It is his birthday.
Kid's a freak.